From the sky, your host as usual. And today we've got a lot to talk about. We're in the middle of eclipse season with a big, powerful eclipse coming up on Election Day, November 8th. And we're going to talk a lot about that. We have on as a special guest today. You've seen her before, JudyAnn Masters, and she'll be helping us to understand when you're in crises like what's on our doorstep. Uh, what are some good ways to handle that? What's a good way to look at it all in order to be at your best during the crisis? And she's got some other things to say too. Then, of course, we've got, as usual, Deborah Knighton Tallarico, and she'll be discussing the importance of Samhain, which every year happens, and this year with the eclipses, maybe a little more powerful. So she'll be talking about that, and maybe she'll have time to get a guided meditation with y'all. So we'll just see how that goes. Let's start off with, middle of eclipse season. The first one was last week, and that was a solar eclipse, new moon in Scorpio. Solar eclipse, new moon in Scorpio, the 25th of October. And a lot of people I talked to, and myself, you could feel the intensity level rising, surrounding an eclipse. And this one's an eclipse in Scorpio, and it's solar eclipse, which is new moon. So I certainly could feel the intensity rising. And like a lot of other people, I felt a little irritable at times with it. Remember, there's a lot of power coming through your system when it's a solar eclipse new moon in Scorpio. Just keep in mind it's in Scorpio, which is about intensity, about passion. So I know a lot of people felt that. Some people had some anger issues that came up. But overall, know it as a new beginning. And in this case, it's kind of a new beginning around this new chapter of life that we have all entered. And the next 6 months to 9 months, it's going to shake up our world in a big way. And that means the old world, the matrix. So letting go of, releasing your having to be controlled by that matrix. And that's not just in the outer world, more important in your inner world. You want to make sure that as much as possible, you're freeing yourself in your heart, your mind, your soul from the controls and the programming of that matrix of that, in our country, military industrial complex, of an old patriarchal paradigm. You could put in whatever words you want, but there's an old world that we've all been sufficiently programmed to be in that is breaking down. And as anything breaks down, animals injured, they get ferocious. So just keep in mind that that's what's coming, that's what's happening. JudyAnn's going to help us understand more about best way to walk through that. So the next eclipse is on November 8th, and that is a lunar eclipse, full moon. Remember, all solar eclipses are new moons. All lunar eclipses are full moons. This will be an extra powerful full moon. Every year there's a sun in Scorpio, moon in Taurus, full moon. Every year. This year it's in the middle of a more important eclipse season than usual. And secondarily, but not even secondarily, primarily, Uranus is exactly conjunct the moon in this lunar eclipse full moon. Uranus is conjunct the moon. Uranus, which is about breaking outside of boxes, opening things up, liberating yourself from places that you're stuck, awakening to new ways of looking at things, and cracking open any eggs in your mind and heart that have been holding you back from moving forward with your life. Like sometimes when we're stuck in certain situations in life, we get scared that we're going to have to leave those situations. Because even when something is bad, you guys know what I'm talking about, even when something is difficult or challenging, there's a familiarity that makes it feel makes you feel kind of content in it in a certain kind of way. So just keep that in mind if you have a hard time leaving something in your life, inside you, that there's a tendency, even if something is difficult, to not let it go. That's why a big word now, I believe, is surrender. Surrender does not mean waving a white flag and giving up. That's what people sometimes think of surrender as. Surrender, in the way that I'm using it, is about letting go and trusting the energies of the universe. If your word is God, God. If your word is Goddess, Goddess. If your word is all that is, all that is. Spirit, nature, whatever it is in your vocabulary, it's time to surrender to that. Does that mean you disappear? No. It means that you just become as pure consciousness as you can, aware, awake, and ready to move with wherever the flow is taking you. So sometimes a person has to be very active, very forceful during a time of surrender. But it's not an attempt to control. It's a moving with the energies and the signs and symbols that are presented to you. So this is very important right now. The next 6 to 9 months going to be major shakeup of the world. Major shakeup. And so we want to not walk through that in fear. We want to walk through that connected with love, with truth, with trust in our souls, trust in our collective soul as humans, and trust in, again, whatever word you use, but I'm going to use universe, you know what I mean. Trust, then you can let go. So this eclipse on November 8th, it's not a mere coincidence that it's happening on Election Day. There are no coincidences, mere coincidences. Everything is meaningful. So on the 8th, we know there's a lot of Trump candidates that are running for office. Which causes strife in the Republican Party because a lot of Republicans don't like that. I should say some Republicans don't like that. And of course, a shakeup with all the rest of the people from other parties, like the Democratic Party, is scared to death that he's going to be rewarded with many victories of people that he has handpicked to run in these different offices. Don't do that to yourself. Let yourself just trust that whatever way this is going to turn is what's needed in order for us to move from where we are now to where we're going into this new age of Aquarius, which we're already in, but we're kind of struggling within that beginning stages of the Aquarius age. According to my calculations, it started on winter solstice, 2020. And I still believe that very strongly. But these early stages of this new age are very challenging. Whenever we're ending something and beginning something new, there always is challenges. A woman giving birth, labor pains, other issues on the way to the delivery room. Whenever there is a big shift, a transition, a death of the old and a birth of the new, it's almost always a big challenge. It's just the nature of things. And so that's where we're at now. The more you can let go of that matrix, and I'll say it again and again, you've got to really let it go inside your heart and your soul and your mind as much as you can. You don't have to be a soldier to the paradigm that controls or tries to control our reality on this earth. The more you can think independently, don't think like a Democrat. Don't think like a Republican. Don't think like any party. Think for yourself. Because that's what we need right now, is everybody thinking for themselves. That doesn't mean being all alone. As you think for yourself, you find other people that feel like family to you. And so you connect with those people that you know are your family. Maybe they're your family here on Earth as soul to soul on Earth. Maybe you had past lives with them. Maybe you've been on other planets living with them. Or maybe just now, as you're all moving in the same places in your consciousness, they are family. But there are family members for you. And that's the community that you want to be with as much as possible. Am I suggesting that you have to not hang out with your family or hang out with old friends because they no longer resonate with who you are and where you're at? If necessary, yeah, but not necessarily. You may feel that you can retain your integrity of what you believe and who you are amongst people who don't believe the same way that you do. In fact, that's the ultimate. If you could do that, if we can all do that, that'd be great. But if you need to be away from people who feel like you can't grow, you can't push past this barrier into the new consciousness when you're around certain people, then you have to honor that and be around them as little as possible so that you can make these leaps and bounds in consciousness, which is really super important right now, everybody. So we've got that second eclipse. It's Sun in Scorpio and Moon in Taurus. Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Taurus, and Uranus conjunct that Moon in Taurus, and it's at 16 degrees of Taurus. All of this is at 16 degrees of Taurus, which means middle degrees of all fixed signs will be affected. So that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. If you have planets, especially your sun, if you have the moon, rising sign, Mercury, Mars, within about from like 13 or 14 degrees to about 18 or 19 degrees of those fixed signs, you're going to be affected. And the closer it is to the 16, the more affected you'll be. Something to be afraid of? No. Something to know you got to be on your toes? Yes. You got to be ready for the change. You got to be moving with the change. That you have to do. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be like, oh my God, no. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes it's just you're getting pushed to make the changes and make the moves. And sometimes those changes and moves can be big. Sometimes there's a relationship that you're going to leave. Sometimes there's a job that's not aligned with you anymore, but you're only there because you're hanging on for dear life for your security's sake. In a lot of cases, you're going to be taking hands holding onto the ledge. You're going to be taken off that ledge, but you'll know, hopefully sooner than later, especially if you trust, that this is all happening for a reason, to get you into the new consciousness, to get you into the new world. That's the most important thing right now. It's your evolution. It's my evolution. It's our evolution as a community of souls. And so moving with that is so important. So it's Scorpio Taurus. So Scorpio Taurus. Scorpio Taurus can be like immovable object, which one I mean, right? Taurus. And an irresistible force, Scorpio. That's one thing to remember. Immovable object, irresistible force. Taurus is also about resisting, holding on, making things solid and secure, being calm and collected. Scorpio is about erupting to break things open, invasion into things that need to be changed, releasing that which needs to go. It's intense and passionate, and it breaks things open. And then Uranus is going to be there too, which is going to help you to break things open. Look behind me. I didn't do it for this show, but you can see on my one end over there, there's lightning going through a tree in the middle of nature. On the other end, there's a very calm scene. I believe it's Maine, with a lighthouse. And in the middle, we've got the yin yang. In a way, this solar eclipse is kind of like that. On the left, I got to get my hand straight here. On this left, that's Uranus. And that's Scorpio. Uranus, because Uranus can be like lightning, shaking things up. And it's like Scorpio, because Scorpio takes us out of the calm and takes us into big change. Transformation is the right word in our lives. On the other side is Taurus. Everything's peaceful, calm. Why would I want to leave the peace and the calm? I'm going to resist all of that lightning that's coming if I can, because I've gotten comfortable in the peace and the calm. But things are shaking up, not just in personal lives, but in the world too. And so in the middle is the yin yang symbol. It's not about war anymore between the two different sides. It's about finding a way to communicate, to bring the different sides together. Remember that. Now, sometimes, people have big arguments or they get separated from each other because they don't feel the same way as the other person. But when you take it to a war, that doesn't need to happen. You do not need to take it to war. If you want to avoid the war, let's say with a friend, relative, whatever, even in the heat of the argument, if you can get to where you can have empathy for their position, and this is not easy, what I'm saying, for me or anyone, if you can have empathy for their position, you can make it so that there's no war. If they can have empathy for your position, there doesn't have to be a war, and you come one step closer to making a relationship that's going to be at least okay, hopefully a deep healing, more hopefully an evolved relationship that's good for both of you. But at the very least, if you have the empathy, you can avoid the bloody war. And this goes for all relationships. Do the best you can. It's not easy sometimes, I know. So that's our full moon. If you're looking out in the world, it's going to be election day. If the Trump people win, well, because they could win a lot of races, even here in Arizona. If they do win, that's going to shake things up quite a bit, right? If they lose, most likely, which we saw in the election with Trump, that Trump lost a few years ago, they can get pretty angry, pretty mean about it. So this election, you can see how it fits. The eclipse going to be there. Things are going to shake up in a big way at this election, no matter which way it turns. If they lose, they're going to be angry. If they win, our whole world is upside down. So if it does happen that way, the second way, if they win, just keep in mind that on some level that you may not understand, that I may not understand, it's what's necessary to get to the next place in our evolution. What happens then before that, on the 30th, which I think that's tomorrow, right? Today's the 29th of October. So on the 30th of October, so about a week before that next eclipse, Mars goes retrograde. And it'll stay retrograde until early January, where it goes back direct again. It's going retrograde at about 25.5 degrees of Gemini. So toward the end of Gemini. And then it'll go back direct in early Gemini, like about 8 degrees of Gemini. So what you got, it starts at 25, it goes all the way down to 8, then comes all the way past that 25 again, and then into Cancer. But it doesn't go into Cancer until I think it's March. So it's going to be in Gemini for a long time. What is Mars retrograde? Okay, one way of looking at Mars retrograde is the god of war. It can be that, but that's not its essence. Its essence isn't war. Its essence is will. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. It's that feeling of I've got the ability to direct my life the way I want it to be. So when Mars is retrograde, it's a good time to meditate on what do you really want in your life? What direction do you really want to go in? What's right for you? What do you desire? These are all Mars issues. Self-assertion, most especially, because a lot of people that I know, they have a hard time asserting themselves. I know men and women both, but I know women have been conditioned a lot to like not speak up for themselves sometimes, just to like go along with the program. They're told that it's feminine to like accommodate everybody all the time and do what they want you to do. So this self-assertion is really important. It's time to speak up. It's time to assert yourself. It's time to believe in yourself. It's time to feel comfortable having things that are right for you. It does not make you selfish. It makes you normal human being. If people are told that every time they go after something that they want or assert themselves in some way, that they're being selfish, that's a way of controlling. It's a way of controlling. You're okay going after what you want, as long as you're not running over people in the process, as long as you're not running over, dominating, you're okay. It's okay to have your own needs. You were made that way. Look at animals. Part of us is animal too, everybody. We're not just all civilized human beings. We're also animals inside. And Scorpio brings out the primal, by the way. Primal is that's why I rule sex. Primal energy. Primal energy is not bad unless it gets out of control. Actually, if it's been repressed too much, then primal energy becomes horrible. Because when it comes out like a monster because it's been held back for so long. That's why don't drop into that world of, you're being a selfish or an evil person because you're doing what's right for you, taking what's right for you, asserting what you need to assert so that you can be true to your own personal integrity. So that's what Mars is. So you can meditate on all those things during Mars retrograde. Out in the world, it is the god of war too. In fact, it's interesting that the United States, Mars in its natal chart from July 4th, 1776, its natal Mars is in Gemini. So its war god is in that sign. And it'll pass over that place in the United States chart 3 times. It's already gone over once, I'm sorry. It's going to go back and then back again. So Mars retrograde on the 30th, second eclipse on November 8th, and then we have a whole new eclipse season next April, May. In between now, I want to finish up pretty much with this now. In between, in February, I don't think a lot of people talk about this or even aware of it, but I spent a lot of time, astrologically speaking, looking at different countries and their birth charts. A lot of time I've spent doing that. Still do. And what I found is really, really unusual is that in February, the planet Saturn will be at 28 degrees in fixed signs. Like for instance, with Israel, let's see, there's a little note there. Yes, that's true. USA had their Mars return on Monday the 24th, but it's not the only pass. It's going to happen 2 more times from a retrograde place and then back direct again early next year. So North Korea. Okay, do I have that list somewhere? North Korea. There it is. Israel. Mars is the 28 of Leo. USA's moon is almost 28 of Aquarius. Ukraine, Venus, 28 of Leo. Syria, Lebanon, Venus, 28 of Scorpio. Palestine, Palestinians, Pluto, 28 degrees of Scorpio. Iran, its original chart, 28 degrees of Scorpio is Venus. Russia, 28 degrees of Leo, it's Venus. North Korea, Saturn, 28 degrees of Leo. The stock exchange, 28 degrees of Taurus. Trust me, this doesn't happen very often. This makes me know that something major is going to happen that happens in all the world. That's going to happen in February or right around there, maybe late March, maybe early or late January, maybe early March. But there's some major thing unfolding. If you go back to 2017, there was a solar eclipse a total solar eclipse at 28 degrees of Leo in August of 2017. That was a big month. That was the month that in Virginia, this was kind of started this culture war that we became aware of anyway. In Charlottesville, Virginia, there was a protest, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and then there was people on the other side also, Antifa, people like that. And a woman actually got killed. You remember that? A woman died that day because of the beginning of this really horrible conflict between those two sides, just like in the Civil War in the 1860s in the United States. That's kind of that same flavor. And also that same month, North Korea and the United States, Trump and Kim Jong-un were strutting, and worries about the nuclear weapon that Kim would shoot off. That was all at 28 degrees of Leo, all that happened. And these are some of the issues that are coming up now. A lot of talk about nuclear energy, a lot of talk about cultural conflict. Just know that we're in for a major shakeup. I don't know that we're going to have a nuclear anything. I don't know that. I don't know for sure how far down the stock market's going to go, but I do know that there's going to be all sorts of powerful energies to take us outside of that matrix in our minds, in our hearts, and in our lives. And I personally believe that that's why I've been working with ET kind of situations and interviewing people, because I have a sneaking suspicion that there's something involving ETs that's going to be a part of all this big shift that happens on the earth over the next 6 to 8 months. We'll be talking a lot, you and I, over those 6 to 8 months. I had a class that I was teaching around astrology and around making contact with ETs. That's all filled up. I'll probably be giving another one early next year, if anybody wants to put that in their calendar, but I don't know exact dates. I'd say probably January or maybe a little later. Okay, without further ado, I think we covered all the astrological basis right now. Just one more thing. Remember, we're moving into an age of Aquarius, consciousness, diversity within unity, equality of the people, by the people, for the people, liberation from domination from kings, queens, governments. You're a free individual to think for yourself in the age of Aquarius. That's now. Get into that consciousness now. Break out of the box of the authorities are going to tell you what your reality is and what truth is. Look how truth is getting all messed up everywhere now. Nobody knows. People have a hard time knowing what the truth is because everybody's twisting it into conspiracy ideas and into whatever they want people to believe is the truth that they present. Think for yourself. Not even the people that you're used to being a part of, whatever party. Don't think for yourself. Don't just automatically think we're supposed to be giving all this money and all these arms to Ukraine. Think for yourself. Know that is right for you on your deeper level of your beliefs and character traits. Okay, that's enough. Now we're going to bring on Judy Masters, we haven't seen her for a few months. And then after that, we're going to bring on Deborah Knighton, and she'll be talking about Samhain. Real quick on Samhain, just tell you this. It's the same time as Halloween. Deborah will tell you much more, but there's a thin line between the worlds on Samhain, between the world that we see, 3D world, and other dimensions. Halloween came from there, remember that. Halloween's about all these scary beings and things like that. That's because Samhain, the veils are thin between the worlds, and people got scared that they were able to contact the other world around that time. So that's the 31st of October. So from about the 27th, 28th till the first few days in November, the veils are thinner. You can try talking to people that have died, move into other dimensions in other ways through your meditations and things like that. But Deborah will tell you much more about it. JudyAnn, let's bring you on right now. There she is. Hi.
Hi, Leo. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's good to see you again.
I'm coming to you today from central London in the UK.
Oh, you are? How nice to know that. Why are you there right now? You have a home there too, don't you?
Yes. This is where I live, and then I spend a lot of time in Seattle. So I'm back and forth.
So Seattle's almost like a home, I guess, but not.
Yes, it's like a second home, definitely. My
Yeah.
son would like to make it my first home. But
I'll bet. Does he have a family? Does he have a
yes,
wife
I
and a
have
family?
family there, yes.
Oh, of course he does. How much time were you there? How long did you spend there this last time?
9 months.
Oh, you spent quite a bit of time. Yeah.
It
Was
was
it hard to
quite
go back to London? Or were you kind of glad to get back?
both,
Yeah.
both. But I was really impressed with I'm always impressed with your analysis because I think you're spot on and I think you're so very gifted in being able to look at a global picture and be able to pick it apart and put it back together again.
Thank you, JudyAnn. Tell our viewers some of your ideas about how people can handle themselves during crisis times. Tell
Okay.
us.
Well, partly, when you were talking about us being all connected and birth, part of the word that I'm getting is quickening.
Okay.
And so with that, anybody who's given birth or helped with birth or trying to move any hard object, it's going to be breathing, isn't it?
Yes.
We, we have to remember to keep breathing.
Yes.
And you also talked about empathy and believing in yourself. We really need to believe we have been given the tools that we need to work with in the here and now, that we've been given them. And we've got to use them. And I'm going to make a challenge to everybody
Oh,
because it ticks so many, many boxes. Whatever words you want to use, I'm going to use the word divinity, but whatever way you identify that which is greater than you, that has the vested interest and is dispensing of gifts and help. I think it's time that we need to prove that how we feel about it, sort of like what you were saying. And we are given an abundance of gifts, graces, blessings. And it's time and we share them in the work we do. But I'm going to say, why don't we all ask divinity that every time that we smile, we will share completely our gifts, graces, and talents will just go out and be given to whoever it is we smile at.
nice.
Open-handedly, like this.
I like that.
Because think of that instead of, like bless our grandmothers who kept the holy water up on the shelf and would give it to us, remember, by one little drop at a time.
Yes.
They treated it like a treasure. It is a treasure, but divinity has given us such an abundance. I drink holy water. When I lived in Hawaii, I bathed in holy water because I had a water catchment. So we can use that sort of thing just in abundance. So the graces that are coming into us, if we sit down and make a meditation and say, look, at every time that I smile, I want to share my gifts and graces that have been given to me out freely, like this, without strings attached. May it happen automatically, so I don't have to ask each time, automatically every time I smile.
And it's got to come from a natural place too, right? It can't be where
Absolutely.
I force myself to smile because I'm supposed to. It's got to come from deep inside your heart and soul.
Exactly, because that's how it's given to you, isn't it?
Yes.
So you need to share as it's been given. And I think that starts to get us thinking in a way of where then you do love yourself and you're going to protect yourself. You
Right.
are going to be thinking humankind and connecting in that way. It starts us thinking on that road to empathy because I totally agree with you. If we don't have empathy, we can't get past this war thing. Also, if we just put war to the side and just look at nature, what we've got to get handled on nature, that's monumental. And I think it's very easily, when we start to think about it, to get totally overwhelmed. And so I think what we need to do, like you say, is just breathe it out. Just breathe and see with that grace coming through this way, smiling again. You're say, what is it? Flushing.
Hmm.
Blessings and graces through you like this. So it's helping you to let go. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yes.
Okie doke. And then it also helps you to remember to use the other gifts that you've been given, whatever they may be. Because so often we don't use the tools that have been handed to us.
Very true.
I know when I was going through, well, I'm not going to go through a big story, but I was just really preoccupied with so very, very much. Painting, when I paint and do art or I do writing, I go to another place. I felt I didn't have time to go to that other place because I had work to do in front of me.
Yes.
When actually you got to flip it, don't you?
Yes.
You've got to go to that other place so that you are able to do what is ever ahead of you, because we're all here for a purpose.
I like
And
that because that other place also gives us inspiration for whatever it is we're creating or writing.
and rejuvenating. And it's
Yes.
that creativity in Hawaii, because I don't know if you know, but I spent about a dozen or so years in Hawaii. I
No.
consider it my
Lucky you.
spiritual home.
Lucky
Yes.
you.
Oh,
Nice.
to say the least. Yes, but it's my spiritual home. I know part of my soul is Hawaiian. We can go on and on. But they've got something there, what they call the mana'o. And the mana'o is in your solar plexus. And they feel, and I agree, this is like a soul entry place. But what they also talk about is that your mana'o, everything you do, your mana'o, part of your spirit, part of your being, part of your essence, goes into whatever you've made.
Hmm.
Now, when we start to think about that and take that in, it can become huge, because this is the same thing that divinity, of course, is with nature. Its mana'o is in everything. So when you start to identify your own mana'o, then it's easier to connect and feel that connection with others, and also the rest of nature, which is
Yeah.
something we need to do.
Yes. I like that a lot. I like that a
Thank
lot.
you.
Judy, let me change it to a little bit to something else.
Okie dokie.
I mentioned at the end of my monologue, I guess, that that you know beings from other dimensions or from other worlds might be involved now that we're at this big crisis in time, which will be more so over the next 6 to 9 months. What are your thoughts about beings and coming here during the crisis time?
Well, I'm not going to say there's so many of them we're going to be tripping over them, but it seems almost like it. It's like everybody's showing up. And that begs the question, why? And that's like 30 shows altogether somewhere else. Why?
Yes.
Why do they have such an interest in us? But
Yes.
yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. Definitely.
What's your take on the interest they have? The positive ones we're talking about now.
The positive ones. I'm going, remember I talked a little bit about seeds last time?
Of course.
Okay, so that's going to be kind of along the same lines of Mana'o.
Say more.
So that's going to be, I think they've got a vested interest in here because they've helped to mold, let's put it that way, or they have a vested interest in our development. And I think that this is the time period we're in. I think there's hardly anybody you'll meet now who isn't going to agree that we're in a time period. It's just on whatever name we're going to use for it.
Yes.
But during this time period, they're making more, especially with the droughts. It's revealing older cultures, and they're being exposed. So this is also a time of accountability, where we're getting, well, some people are getting, it seems like they're comeuppance, but but I think it's more in the terms of exposure into whatever way that's going to be. And you said something else I think that's really important for us to remember is to vanish the us versus them. Because
Yes.
as long as we have us versus them, we have war.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so important.
So let's say that all the Trump people get in. It goes back to what you said about trusting. We need to just breathe it out that somehow this is going to be like the pebble that's thrown in the pond,
Yes.
whatever its ripples are going to be.
Exactly.
Okay, so going back to the beings,
Yes.
I think they're definitely here and they're definitely involved. I think also, too, they can either have solid form or unsolid form. And I think that sometimes people might get them confused with ghosts or shadow people.
Yes. But when you go into those other dimensions, sometimes you're not sure exactly what it is that you're contacting.
I know. And then, yes, and that's something too one needs to be a bit aware of, because just because they're from another dimension, you don't go, oh, hi, come on here and sit in my living room with me.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, we wouldn't do that in the physical world, so you're not going to do it in dimensional worlds. So I
Right.
think it's really important to have a criteria and post, because I think it's okay to set boundaries. In
Yes.
fact, I think that's called protection.
Yes. And that's what I meant about self assertion. Now, with
Yes,
Mars retrograde, we have to learn how to assert ourselves. And that's the way you got to assert yourself. I don't feel comfortable right now with whoever it is. And I'm not closing the door. I'm closing the door. Not comfortable.
well, I'll share what I do is anything that thrives in divine love in the white light. I'm We can talk.
Yes.
We can, we can have an exchange, that sort of thing. Anything that does not thrive in that, it's out.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yes.
get across the thresholds at
Right.
all.
So you got to be in your instincts and trust your instincts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of people haven't learned to trust their instincts because they've been taught that their instincts aren't worth anything. They need to be thinking about what other people tell them to do.
Right. And going back to the elections, it could be that we have to pop a boil there.
Say more about that.
That energy. Now, see, this is where it gets really tricky, as you know.
Yes.
How do you talk about that which maybe needs to be dispersed and do it in a way that doesn't sound like us versus them?
Yes, that's it. That's it.
it's
Exactly.
a, it's really, really a challenge.
Right.
And
But let's say you're with a friend, right? It's
yes,
not an us versus them thing, but they're in a really bad space. They got really horrible negative energy, and they're a great friend of yours. You go, hey, well, right now I need to go. I need to go to another room. I love you, but I'm feeling like I need to breathe a little on my own right now. It's not an us versus them. It's the energy that I'm contacting right now doesn't feel comfortable to me.
right, right. And yes, and I totally agree with you. You have to be able to be okay with that.
Yes,
And,
yes,
and And even if, let's say, you're with somebody who isn't getting it yet, or maybe they're on the verge. I mean, you can always just say, I've got to lay down or it's my stomach or you know what I mean?
Yes.
You don't have to identify
No, you can do a little white lie sometimes. It's
different
okay.
source of
At least
food.
to me, it's okay. Yes.
Yeah. But I totally agree with you. And then also, I think going back to the ETs and the
Yes.
interdimensional people, I'm sorry, I'm just skipping around, but
It's
it's
okay.
just
It's okay. We can follow.
okay. Most all to that I can speak of, interdimensional people, they, for all intent purposes, look like us. So then that starts to get a little confusing in the script.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes. That's been your experience. I know it has. Some people do see something different than what looks like us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vibrationally, you can tell.
Yes.
Yes, vibrationally, you can tell. Because I think the first time I came across something like that, I was 18 years old, and I'm walking on the beach in Carmel with a couple of friends of mine. Oh, by the way, my girlfriend's boyfriend who was with us, I'm trying to remember his first name now. Could have been Jeff. But anyhow, his last name was Casey, the grandson of Edgar Casey.
Oh, really? Oh, how
Oh,
interesting.
really? Yes. How and so it was so cool hanging out with him when I was, 17 and 18 years old, because when something would happen, right, he'd say, "Oh, that's called blah, blah, blah. And you do this and that and the other thing." So it was just,
Wow.
it was very cool. So, anyways, the three of us were walking on Carmel Beach and we saw a couple standing there looking up at the stars and talking. So we went in and we started a conversation with them, and before long, it's like they were caught up with each other again and what they were talking about in the stars. And they were coming from a whole different place
Mm.
in perspective. And I just thought at that time, they aren't from here.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
yes,
I,
we didn't even say goodbye. We just kind of moved on.
yeah. What a great,
We were
what
so
a great,
caught up.
what a great experience to
Yeah.
have gone through. I hate to let you go, but we have Deborah has got some important things to talk to us about. So I'm gonna bring
Okay.
her on, and I'm gonna ask you please come back on again.
Okay, sounds good. And I hope I got in what we were supposed to, but please,
Yes.
everybody, use the smile. And if you teach classes, have your students do it. If you have employees, have them do it. Because you can see after a while how that network will spread. And that's how where we'll get our protection.
I like that a lot. I like that
Okay.
a lot. Yeah, and that's our community of Age of Aquarius. It's
Using
good.
our tools, empowering everyone around us is the easiest way to protect yourself.
I like that a lot. Thank you very much, Judy Ann.
Okay.
Hope we can talk to you soon again.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Deb.
Hey there, everybody. So that was awesome. I loved hearing both of you. That was very enlightening. And I loved what you were saying, Leo, about getting out of the matrix. And that really resonates with me. And I think, like you were saying, I just really resonated with the time frame. And it's such a potent time right now, such a potent time. And I just wanted to add something to what Judy said. I loved what she said too. And in terms of protection, when you're opening up to connect with beings on the other
Yeah.
side, or and even ancestors. Um, the one thing that I always do when I like do a ceremony or meditation, or invocation where I'm calling beings forth, I'm connecting, is please, only those beings that are the highest vibration of love and light, divine love and light, um, are allowed to come into the sacred space. And I think
Yes.
that's a really good um, discrimination to do, or a
Yeah.
protection to do.
Pretty
And
similar to what Judy Ann was saying. You guys are on the same page on that.
yeah, and you can tell when there's an energy that's not um, that when there's an energy that's not of that loving vibration.
Yes.
So And the other thing I just wanted to say was earlier I got thrown off and I came back, but there was a woman that wanted to know. So I want to make sure before we end that people know how to get a hold of you, Leo, because she wanted to get an astrology session. So
Okay.
I just wanted to say that you can reach Leo at leoknightentallarico.com or at Solus, Soulus, at AOL.com.
That was on the
Again,
chat. You wrote that, Deb, on the
that was
chat?
in the chat, yeah. So again, you can go to leoknightentallarico.com or Solus at AOL.com. So
Thanks. I
I'm
wish I
going to
could get
talk
to do
about,
that.
yeah,
Samhain, please.
yeah. So this is such, I just want to add to what you were saying, Leo, what a powerful, powerful, powerful time this is between these eclipses. So we're in this powerful portal. And at the eclipse, Venus was also in Scorpio, went into Scorpio like an hour and 15 minutes after the sun and moon. And Venus, which is not always true at this time of year, Venus is in her underworld phase in her 19-month cycle because she's traveling with the sun. And I just want to mention that because it's very profound. So basically, Venus and the sun are going to be very close together all the way through November, and it started in mid September. But this Tuesday, it was exact, or no, I think it was Sunday. The sun and this Saturday, last Saturday, the sun and Venus were exactly conjunct. So if you
Yeah,
think of the symbolism of that, Venus is on the other side of the sun, but there's that energy of the transformational energy, that fire energy of the sun is transforming Venus, which is how we are our goddess of love, how we are in
yes,
relationships, our relationship with beauty, and that is going through a transformation right now. And also, as you were talking about with Scorpio, and to add the Scorpio to it, it makes it so much more powerful because Scorpio is such transformational energy.
exactly.
And so we have an empowering energy ultimately. And when Venus is in the underworld, or when, if you look at all the ancient myths, when Inanna went to the underworld, ultimately through the death and rebirth process and facing the shadow energies, there was an empowerment. And so this time is like you were saying, is such a potent time for empowerment. And then, with the eclipse and all that, the next eclipse with Uranus, so powerful.
Yes,
And so what's really important now is to stay grounded as much as we can. And then to add into that is Samhain and
yes.
so this period of time from October 31st, which is Monday, actually through November 6th, is
Oh,
that period of the festivals to honor our ancestors, right? So Samhain, All Hallows, the Day of the Dead in Mexico, which is the Spanish word for it is El Dia de los Muertos, which is celebrated in Sedona. There's signs everywhere right now. And I went to a yoga class last night, and she was half Mexican, and she and her family celebrate it every year. So we were talking about that. In almost so many traditions of the world, this is the sacred time to honor our ancestors,
yes,
whether it was ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, in the Aztec tradition, in the Zuni, Hopi Pueblo, in their tradition. It's the time to honor the ancestors. So, what does that look like? Um, it's a wonderful, wonderful time to build an altar to honor your ancestors. So, what do you put on that altar? Photographs of your ancestors that you have, any offerings to them. So, for example, for me, what I do every year at this sacred time, my grandmother, who I was very, very close to, we used to sit and drink tea together all the time. She's from Wales, and that was what we did all the time. So every year at this time, I make tea, the kind of tea she liked, in one of her teacups that we used to sit and drink. And I put that on the altar. I put that on the ancestors' altar. And you could put fruits and I also usually add chocolate to honor my mother because she loved
Ooh, I
chocolate.
like that. Yes.
Yeah, so you add, and if there's any sacred objects or symbols from your culture, from your lineages, and remember, we all have 4 lineages because we have both sets of our grandparents, and those are each a lineage. So that's 4 lineages that we have. So we have our maternal grandparents, both of those lineages, and then our paternal. We have both those lineages. And even beyond that, which I learned through a class I took, is how important it is to honor and connect with our way, way, way back indigenous ancestors, because
That's right.
all of us have indigenous ancestors.
That's easy to forget. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
That's
and
really
it's important that you call forth this if you want to do this. I did this in my priestess training this week, where we all went back and I guided them to connect with their wise, illuminated, and healed indigenous ancestral grandmother. Is what we did. Was we focused on
wow.
grandmother. And it's really profound when you do that, and then that helps you connect with the sacred tools that your ancient indigenous elders um, worked with. So in my case, mine were the druids, and even probably before that. And
Mm,
and to just really, for me, just really honor it. I'm just speaking in my case, and it's different for each of us, whatever your ancestry is, to like honor, all our indigenous ancestors. They were connected to the earth and the stars. They lived in sacred relationship, the ones that were the illuminated ones, the wise ones
this
of
is
our
important. It's
indigenous.
important to recognize. I like this.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's really important that we connect with that. And we need that now. I mean, we can't go back to those times, but we need that wisdom of the indigenous peoples and from our own, and it's in our blood. Even though, like the Native Americans, it's right there. For us, we have to go farther back to access
Yes.
that. But it's really important, that wisdom of living in harmony with the earth. We need that right now, that indigenous wisdom.
Yeah. With the Italians, they were called the Etruscans, I believe. The ancestors. Tell me, did your grandmother know when she was having tea with you? Did she know it was Samhain at the time that you would do that?
Oh, no, no,
Sometimes.
no. We did that all the time. I just honor her now since she's
Yeah.
passed by putting a cup of tea on my altar for her. So, no, I don't think my grandmother wasn't really connected to her indigenous roots.
Very few people are.
I know, very few people are, and it's so empowering. Like,
Yeah.
I came across this ancient druid website. Some of you that have that ancestry may have connected with it, and it was so profound for me because I was reading it and I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I've been connected to my whole
Mm,
life. Like, I've loved trees since I was a little girl. My
yeah.
first ceremony I did was with the trees when they died. And, trees are like major in the Celtic Druid tradition. And then the animal spirits, and it's such a shamanic culture. It's like we all have shamanic indigenous elders. It goes back to, goes back. We worked with magic and alchemy, and
Yes.
that,
Yes.
that sacred connection, and seeing that everything on the earth has spirit in it. And
Yes.
all the indigenous peoples believe that, and that's in us, and we need to bring that forth now. And now I just want to say, this time of, the ancestors, Samhain, All Hallows, Day of the Dead, All Souls Day, All Saints Day, it's this time to make these altars, honor our ancestors, and call them forth, because as you said, the veils between the worlds are thin. It's a time when we can really talk with them. We can communicate with them. They might come to us in our dreams. I just had a dear, dear friend pass away 3 weeks ago, and I had a dream of her this week, and she was there. It wasn't just a dream. She was with me, and it was
Yes.
profound. So those beings, it could be our animals, pets that we loved, they can come back to us. We can feel them around us. And we might actually get a download from one of our ancestors. One of my clients, that happened to her this week. One of her ancestral grandmothers came, and it was so profound. And it's like she came through her, and she did a whole presentation about what her grandmother was trying to express through her.
And
So
like
this
you said, this time of year, it's easier to do that than other times of the year.
Yes. So it's so super potent now, and I know we're at the hour, so I'm going to end here and just really encourage everyone to just open your senses and watch your dreams and just be really attuned to the voices of your ancestors right now, and those that have gone before us, the indigenous elders, those that want to communicate to us right now, and to really honor that.
That was
And
lovely.
yeah,
Thank you, Deborah.
yeah, and if anyone wants to reach me, my website is
Yeah,
Gaia Sophia templeoftheheart.com. And if you go there, you can get my email.
I missed
So
asking JudyAnn about that. We'll get her on next time. We'll get people to be able to contact her too. Um, well, I will see you all. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks. I guess right after the second eclipse in the election. We'll see you that Saturday. I'm glad we'll be there then. Then I'll have a special show the week after that with Alan Steinfeld is coming back again. So we'll have 2 weeks in a row. Who wrote Contact? Alan. He was with us before. He'll be back. JudyAnn, I know, will be back with us before long. And we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Much love always. Bye-bye.
bye bye.